Well, guys, it seems like we actually have some good news coming from the government. You know, them actually doing something that the people would support. We haven't had much of that over the past, year or so, but now it seems they might be actually doing something about it. Last year, we dealt with the BLM riots and all that was going on down in London and indeed across the country, with woke mayors, tosspot councils, and the rest of them allowing these people to go unchecked, and the police, especially in Bristol, even letting them get away with it. Though, to be honest, the police in London also did the same. But obviously, in Bristol, we had the police say they made the tactical decision to do nothing while these people pulled down statues and threw it in the river. Plus, Labour councils running around saying how they're going to take down statues, change street names, and do all of this because obviously the woke mob told them to do it. Now, though, the government actually seems to be growing a pair of balls and saying, no, this is not going to happen, as is reported here by Breitbart this morning. It says statues to be given new legal protections against baying mobs and left-wing revisionist purges, obviously talking about Labour councils. Historical monuments and statues in Britain will be granted new legal protections from baying mobs and the revisionist purges carried out by left-wing Labour Party-controlled councils. Community Secretary Robert Jenrick said that the changes in law will mandate that all memorials, monuments, historical statues, plaques, and street names will have to go through an official planning process rather than being left to the mercy of local Labour-run councils, which I'm sure you would all agree is good news and something that should have been in place anyway, especially after what happened 6 months ago or so. The law will also recommend that rather than removing statues, they should instead be contextualised, though the final say on removals will be in the hand of Mr. Jenrick. Local citizens will also be empowered through the planning process to object to taking down any statues, which obviously everyone in their right mind should be doing, even if you don't agree with the person whose statue it's of. If you forget what happened in history, you are doomed to repeat it, as they say. It says writing in the Telegraph, Mr. Jenrick said that it's not right for monuments, which were in many cases funded by voluntary public donations, to be removed at the hands of the flash mob or by the decree of a cultural committee of town hall militants and woke worthies. Which, once again, is exactly what we see happening last year and is still going on now. Many councils and tosspot mayors are doing their best to remove anything that shows our history or especially supports it. We know they would make history in their own image if they could. We see it every single day at this point. It goes on, we live in a country that believes in the rule of law, but when it comes to protecting our heritage, due process has been overridden. That can't be right, Jenrick declared. Which obviously it's not, but I'm sorry to say you piss-poor tosspots allowed it to happen all last year. You have an 80-seat majority, why don't you do something about it? You're quick enough to use it when you want to lock us down and all this bollocks, but you're not quick enough to do it when it comes to protecting our history. This is the sort of shit that really pisses me off about this government, along with their piss-poor immigration and practically everything they've done over the past year. But at the moment, they are doing something here that is at least decent. They need to hurry the fuck up. Goes on, what has stood for generations should be considered thoughtfully, not removed on a whim or at the behest of a baying mob, he added. They shouldn't be removed regardless of anything. At the end of the day, even if they're the scum of the earth, leave them there because it's history and then it will teach other people, don't be like this cunt. You can change the wording on it and say what he did, but at the end of the day, he should remain. I'm sure most would agree with that. The government said that legal protections would apply to all 12,000 statues in England, 3,400 of which already have some degree of legal protection as listed by local governments of monuments of historical significance, which previously would not preclude local councils from removing the statues. The proposed change to law will be presented to Parliament on Monday, so today, and is expected to come into effect by March. So we better hope BLM don't get skirty and start running around trying to tear these things down before March, because they'll just be allowed to do it like they are now and like they was last year. It says the law will also cover attempts to rename streets in England linked to the British Empire or some other perceived historical grievance from left-wing activists. Thank fuck for that. It won't be long before we had a BLM Sasha Johnson Street if this lunacy continued, so well done to the government for actually dealing with it there. Providing, of course, that they actually hurry up and get it done. New trends in street names were illustrated in Birmingham last year when the City Council approved several housing development streets including Diversity Grove, Equality Road, Destiny Road, Inspire Avenue, Respect Way, and Humanity Close. What the fuck is wrong with these people? How pathetic do you really have to be to think that anyone gives a shit what the street is called? Only middle-class lefty tosspots who are sitting there having a soy latte with an avocado on toast are gonna care about about this bollocks, you know, the ones who write for The Guardian. The rest of the country doesn't give a flying fuck, and never will. And the rest of the article there talks about what I've already covered in relation to what happened last year. I'm not going over it again. We all know the lefty protesters, councils, and all the other mayoral tosspots that we've been dealing with are not going to be happy with this, which makes me extremely fucking happy. Well done to the government for actually getting this done. Today the bill will go before Parliament, so we'll have a little check on that later and see what's happening. As it stands though, this is actually a good thing that the government has done, so you can check that off the list of things the government should be doing. It's a very small list at the moment, but it is there nonetheless.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.